Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 8. Boy, I hope I can see myself here. I look a little dim. I'm going to turn up my brightness. Good to see you all. I hope you're having a fantastic day, morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night, whatever you're doing. It's midnight here, so I'm ready to party, not going to lie. I'm also really excited about the guests that we have on today. It's just going to be so much fun. And I'm sure that it's going to turn into an actual party once we get going. So, going to be great. All right, who's on board? I want to see. Give me some comments here and say hi. Because there are people signed in. And they're coming. Of course, Simon. Great to see you. Good evening, Keely. And good afternoon. Shh, don't tell everybody that she's waiting in the green room. I got her in the green room. Absolutely, some world coverage today. Great to see you. Zed, nice to see you, buddy. I love how you tune in, but I'm pretty sure after about 10 minutes you've gone to sleep because for everybody, Dennis is here in Calgary, so tough time zone for all of us. Dane, great to see you from sunny Antwerp. A little bit of an echo today. Is it a bad echo? Is it the worst echo? Or is it doable? Let me just check my settings on all of the things. And he hangs in. Let's see how this goes. I am using a new microphone today, guys, so things might be a little odd. And if it's terrible, please do let me know so that I will switch to my good old trusty AirPods. So, morning, Paul. Good to see you. I know you can cope, but if it's awful, just tell me. Okay. Who else is on board? Yep, everybody's starting to pile in. This is great. Now remember, as always, the deal is that you need to go and boot up the game in another window. Otherwise, you're going to wonder what the hell Aleisha and I are talking about. So make sure, hi Bruce, with a great last name, Bruce Hockey. Make sure you boot up the game. The link is there. Thanks to Simon for correcting it because I had it pointed to the first game of the series and we want the second game. The pivotal match because very, very exciting. Mike D, good to see you. Mark, hi. I haven't seen you on the broadcast before. It's good to see you. Tomo. Tomo's here. Normal says a little echo never hurt anybody. I like how you're going. Michelle Farnell's on board. Great. Dr. Vikas, thank you for joining. And Jono's here, so we know we're going to get all our cues. Okay, so let's make sure that you've got the game booted up, and let me see where my cue is, unless Jono's got it handy. Now, do I say it Michael or do I say it Michelle? Pivco, you need to tell me at some point. Maybe just WhatsApp me and let me know because I'm going to say it wrong. Alan, great to see you. So when you're queuing up the match, we are looking at 1:50:39, I believe. Yep. Stain, that's perfect. Thank you. That's where we're queuing it up from the left-hand side, and I think it's 11:12 if you're watching your little cursor being dragged across. So that should be good. All right. Well, you guys, I think everybody's booting up, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to welcome our special guest. So excited. Joining me all the way from sunny Brisbane. Brisbane. God, I hate saying things wrong. Anyway, thanks for joining me tonight. Aleisha Neumann, here you are. How you doing today? What's going on?
I'm good. Good. It's Brisbane.
Brisbane, okay, I did say it right the first time. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. How was the day at work? You had a full day and everything was it was better than yesterday, I hope, because you had some tech problems yesterday.
Yeah, we're working at an environment at the moment where students are working from home unless their parents are essential workers, and then staff are at school to provide that online learning. So just trying to get our heads around the technology and cross our fingers that the technology doesn't fall apart like it did yesterday and crash for the entire state. So. Yeah.
For the entire state, so that's a bit of a problem. Yeah.
A couple thousand kids can't access their learning for the day.
Like, whatever. What's the big deal? It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, we all have growing pains going through it, but glad you're back to work anyway, and I'm sure you're happy to have something to get you busy and out of the house and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, definitely.
so we're going to be watching your second game in China last November, October 26th. The second game of the two-game series. Why don't you set the stage for us? Like, tell us a little bit about what it's like to fly over to China and to do a two-game series there, because I'm sure everybody's dying to know like all the insider scoop on that stuff.
China Hockey are the best hosts that you could ever ask for. They are so flexible, and they really make sure that we have an awesome time, which is a nice thing to go into. That was my third trip to China last year, so
Oh, wow.
I kind of had my bearings around what was happening. Normally we stay in a hotel that's literally beside the practice pitch. You look out your window and you can watch people train. So you get in your uniform and have your pre-match talk at the hotel. You walk to the pitch 20 minutes before the game. Like, it's very relaxed.
Wow.
In your timing. So that was good. But this trip, they actually put us up in a different hotel, which was a little bit nicer. They put us in the Hilton, which was a very fancy breakfast every day.
Ooh.
But yeah, no, a good little team. So me, Maggie and Emmy. Maggie and Emmy did the first games. I was the video umpire. Belgium got away to a cracker start. I think they scored within a few minutes, and then really dominated the contest. They spent a lot of time in their attacking end of the field, and China didn't really have an answer for them in that first game. So we sort of speculated that they could have gone two ways, the Belgians. They could have continued to attack in game two, or maybe they were going to play it a little bit safer, and they went option B, and I think they might have, if they could relive that day, gone a little bit differently in their approach.
Yeah, that makes some sense. And we're going to see all that unfold over the next couple hours, give or take a few minutes. But I've never managed to keep this down to like the hour and a half that I aim for. But
yeah,
that's fine. We're all friends here. We've got nothing to do. We're all staying at home. So there you go. So hopefully everybody's got things queued up. Just remember, we are at 1:50:39-ish. I'll just spit out the link one more time for the people who are joining the broadcast late. And and here's Michelle asking whether you've overcome the trauma of last week.
I don't know what happened last week, Michelle.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if she's talking to you or me, but we'll find out. She'll send us a DM, I'm sure, very shortly. All right, so we are going to start the first quarter, because things do take a while to get going in this game. So there's going to be lots of chances for us to talk over what's happening and all that kind of stuff. Oh, she's talking to Tomo. Tomo was not traumatized by being with me, obviously. Come on, guys. Okay, so we're going to get the game started. And if you guys are ready, we're going to go in 3, 2, 1... and starting Q2. And there is Ballanine hitting the ball down the pitch. It's an interesting tactic to start the game, hey?
Yeah.
I know it's very, very deliberate on their part, and they do it in a lot of games, but yeah, it's an interesting choice. I insist you take the ball from us.
Yeah.
So after having the first game under your belt, you were obviously sort of trying to, suss out what you thought you might see from the teams. How were you feeling going into the game? Did you feel like there was a lot of pressure? Did you feel a little more comfortable because you'd already settled in with one game and, been around the teams and felt what was going on? How did you feel?
Like, we understood the pressure of what was going to come. The night before, we had gone out for dinner and had a discussion with the liaison officer that was working with us from China Hockey, and he explained the significance of the game for China, and it kind of could have meant the death of hockey in China if they were to lose the match. They would be restricted in their government funding, and it could have really severe impacts to their whole national program. So. And on the flip side, Belgium had such a rippy year last year. They played Pro League at the start of the year. They were phenomenal. They were beating Australia and New Zealand, and they were so competitive and really sort of following in their men's footsteps in a rise up the international rankings. So, it was it was going to be a game of really important proportions, and you essentially at the end of the day, one team goes to the Olympics and one team doesn't. So we really kind of understood that it was going to be a tough game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that we tend not to appreciate as much at these qualifier events, whether it's the 2-game series or the tournament settings, that there's almost more pressure in these games than when you go to the big tournaments, because there's absolutely winning and losing and consequences to those, but these matches make such a difference to funding for the teams, for the programs, and they risk, and it's worldwide. It's not just certain countries that depend on government funding. It's a lot of countries. So I felt I was at one Olympic qualifier tournament and a World Cup qualifier tournament, and you could really feel that desperation, not just for the immediate result, but for the consequences for the next 4-year cycle and that sort of thing. So
I
definitely get that. Yeah. Oh, Lim's on board. Excellent. He's studying up because, hey, everybody, in case you didn't, well, of course you wouldn't know this because I've been planning it behind the scenes, but Mr. Lim is going to join me on Saturday for Umpired Home episode 9. So I hope you guys can all tune in for that. It's going to be so much fun. Can't wait. I know he's a little nervous, but he's going to be great. Yep. Bronze medal games are very big too, Paul. That's a very good observation. So if you guys at home watching, you've got questions for Aleisha, you want to know more about China and about how it works with language barriers and that sort of thing. One thing I really noticed when I watched this game again is that I noticed that the direction of the cameras and where it was following and what replays it was showing and things like that were really confusing. Like, they didn't show what you guys were actually, it made it look like there was confusion on the field when there wasn't. Just because, absolutely. The direction was confused, and then the commentator had no idea what was happening. So it's a little disconcerting when you're watching this game, but when you set aside, again, sometimes you just have to shut off the commentator when you're watching these games and just appreciate what you're seeing and make your own decisions as to what's happening. And I bet you're probably getting the better stories. So
and even in the video umpire setup, in the 3 trips that I took to China, one was with Lim actually. We had 3 different setups every time, and the first time we went, the broadcaster thought that Hawkeye were coming to run the video. So Lim was our video umpire, and thank gosh that he speaks the language. Because he was able to have a conversation with the broadcaster and say, no, like, I need a video screen and you need to provide me replays. So even 10 minutes before the match, he was still trying to organize that. And if it was anyone else who didn't speak the language, it could have been a whole lot more difficult to set that up properly.
Oh, wow. Yeah, these are the challenges. So Simon's got a question for you. The Chinese coach was very demonstrative on the sideline after the first game. Did you have any conversations about that with anyone?
Not really. Both coaches were out of the dugout area. They were out on the pitch on the sideline, and it's not a huge runoff. So Tammy, who was our match manager, had her job cut out for her, walking up and down the sideline and saying, hey, you can't actually be in the 23-metre area. You need to be in front of your dugout, because they both got a little bit long. But, I think coaches are allowed to be passionate just like players. So long as they're not being aggressive and abusive, it doesn't really faze me too much. There's a reason that I put the earpiece of the radio in the left ear.
Exactly. Exactly. That's very interesting, and I'm really glad to hear you do that, because that's something that I suggest to umpires that I work with, and it's something that I've always done, because I want to block out anything that's coming from this side, but I really do want to hear what's happening on the pitch. I want to hear stick sounds. I want to hear what players are asking me questions about. I want to be able to communicate with them, but it's only what's inside the big white box. So I try to encourage umpires, even if they're right-handed, and sometimes they expect that that's their better ear, that, to try to switch it to the left and see how that feels. Because, it's a good tactic for sure. Can't hear you. I got something in my ear.
yeah, that's it.
Very cool. So we're heading close to about 8:30 on the game clock, and there hasn't really been too much going on. Absolutely normal. Very good tip. Agree. Pretty nice flow to the game so far, but everything in the midfield, right? You guys haven't called a corner yet.
Yeah, I think both teams were just kind of feeling out how the other was going to play. So, you know, Emmy and I found ourselves quite stretched at a few points here, but yeah, nothing too much. I think in midfield games a really accurate reflection there of what they started with.
Yeah. Absolutely. And more of it was sort of going to Emmy at first. Is there anything that you do mentally as that's happening to shift your game plan? Is there anything that you're like, okay, yep, Emmy's got the play now, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that? Any support chatter that you necessarily give her, or are you just like, yep, this is business, no problem, nothing needs to change here?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I communicated too much. In Emmy being Japanese and English not being her first language, if I'm gibbering away in her ear, she's probably going to tune my voice out. And then when it's something really important, she's, you know, not listening, or she doesn't, you know, recognize the difference. So just letting her concentrate on what she needs to do without also translating my voice in her head is really important. I'm not sure. It's sort of, I'm at 6:40-ish on mine. Is that about where you're at?
Yep.
Yeah, so there was an overhead there that just came down right in front of the Chinese coach. And like that, for instance, was one where I said on the radio, yours, because she had that really nice, clear view across the field. But apart from that, pretty quiet on the radio, a bit more of just the off-ball management. So we call it sort of having front door, back door. So if the ball's on the far side of Emmy's circle, I'm going to watch the players, just check out what they're doing in regards to the physicality of their marking. Are they, you know, loitering around the goalkeeper, and just keeping an eye on sort of the management of what's happening.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's really good for people at home as well to think that there's a really important role that you can play, even if the ball isn't right, you know, in your face, and that you're having to make the overt decisions. You're still processing everything that's happening, and you might be making a lot of sort of no call decisions or advantage decisions, and then just trying to assess, what's happening in your colleague's circle, and being ready to help to step in if anything needs to be addressed. So yeah, that's great. So don't forget, guys, you can ping your questions, anything you want to know about Aleisha Neumann. You just go ask her anything. No, okay, just ask her about hockey. But we get lots of great questions on these broadcasts, and I really enjoy being able to put them up and that sort of thing, because otherwise I'm going to talk too much. Nobody wants that. A lot of aerials in this game.
Yeah, both teams were using it as a tactic to get out of defence. I think because we were so stretched, there was lots of holes in the midfield to try and pop the ball into. I think one thing we sort of discussed after the game was our timing on a few was a little bit slow, potentially causing a bit of frustration in the teams. So I think you spoke. I watched Sarah's episode back last week, and she spoke about that, 20-metre decision, and it just lets the players that are within the 5, it makes them ineffective. They can no longer do anything as soon as you blow the whistle. So it does allow the game to speed up a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm right about here at the first green card, which is at about 4:35 on the clock, and this was Emmy's card. Was there anything? Did she say anything? Did you pick up exactly what it was that she was carding for at that moment?
No, I must say that one came as a bit of a surprise for me. I at my angle across the field didn't see a lot of contact. She said at quarter time that it was just a really late, blatant sort of stick that she had thrown in. The player herself didn't protest too much, so maybe something did go on that Emmy's spotted really well, because usually a player, if you give them a green, at least looks at you with a funny look if you're completely off the mark with what you're doing. So yeah. Michelle
is asking, can you explain the back door, front door again?
So talking about like when the ball's down in the circle end of the field, whether it's your end or your colleague's end, if the ball's in, say, my end of the field and my sideline, just because of the nature of the play, it kind of gives you a blinded angle towards the stroke point area of your own circle, meaning that's your back door. Because it's behind you, so your colleague can watch the back door across the field while you take care of the front door, that's what's happening in front of you. And likewise, if the play was at my end but on the far side of the circle, my colleague can take care of what's in front of her and her front door, and I'll look after what's happening in the circle and not necessarily track the ball in that end of the field.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. I have heard those terms used. It's not something that's super familiar to me, but yeah, I like that.
I think the men use it a little bit more than the women, so having that involvement with men at Pro League, you hear it a little bit more, and different ways of discussing things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're at about 2:30 left in Q1. The Belgium card's probably just about to be done. Didn't really change much in terms of the flow of the game.
No, China were very patient with how they circulated the ball. Once they kind of got it, it was, I'm not sure if they had decided that the day before that Belgium had run them ragged. So when we get the ball, we're going to really take care of it and control it and control the tempo of the match. And they stuck to that game plan right up until minute, 3 to go in quarter 4 when they made an impact with what they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike D was just asking what was the green card for. I think, like Aleisha and I were saying, we weren't really sure what we had identified, but you can see from what happened on the broadcast, the defender just came in on the side of the player a little bit late, maybe a little bit physical, that sort of thing. I don't think it was a breakdown. I think it was just a contest that was just a little bit, too physical for Emmy's liking. So I think that's where she went with that.
She was standing right behind it, so that's a 90-degree angle to what we're seeing through the broadcast. So must have looked very different for her.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've really learned to appreciate, not just from umpire managing in person, but watching as many games as I have. I've realized that the angles really are deceiving, and you have to be very open to the idea that even what you see could seem so clear, but could be completely wrong. And it's one of those incredible paradoxes of watching hockey on TV. We just don't have enough cameras yet. We don't have the skill and the production teams to really know when certain angles should be used. You can tell when you're watching games from, say, Malaysia or the Belgian-Netherlands crews are really good as well, that they really understand what they should be looking at certain points in the game.
Yeah. The crew that we've worked with in New Zealand at the start of this year for Pro League, they're a crew that have been around a little bit as well. The director was at the Commonwealth Games, so, having multiple games of experience, even as the video umpire, when they're cueing in angles, they know exactly what you want much quicker than for this game, for example, where I had 2 Chinese operators who didn't speak English, who had never done a hockey match before, and who were controlling half of the cameras each on 2 separate screens. So before the match, Chow Ying, Cindy, came up and translated a few words on a piece of paper for us, like rewind, slow down, backwards, forwards. And then we had a layout of the cameras, and we literally pointed at the camera and pointed at the word. And that was how we cued through. And like the first referral that came up, the operator on my right was queuing up the first camera I pointed to, and the operator on the left just was sitting and watching. So when I wanted a different angle, he then had to cue his own up because he wasn't working at the same time, which made our video referral process much longer than it probably needed to be.
Oh. Wow, that's fascinating, because that's something that you really wouldn't know about at home, that's one of the constraints that you're under. Everybody thinks that you're just taking your time and really thinking hard about what you've seen. But yes, it's technological limitations often. and that sort of thing. These are the growing pains of the sport and things that we should appreciate. So, well, I'm sure everybody has reached the end of quarter 2 or quarter 1 by now, and they're all queuing up for quarter 2. I've got 1:33:15 as the queue, so hopefully everybody's been able to scroll past there, and I got a couple really good questions to kick us off for the second quarter here. So if everybody's ready, we're going to get going Q2 in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. And look, the ball's going to get hit off the end line again. All right. So when we were talking about cameras, Nirmal had this question. Do you think the perception of what umpires are seeing on the pitch and how that's different from what we're seeing from TV cameras, do you think that chest-worn cameras might help with that perception?
I don't think chest cameras help, because often your body and chest will be still while your head's doing this action. But at the Commonwealth Games, we trialled a head cam that sat at your eye level, just above your ear. And we had some really amazing feedback from that, from people who were like, oh my God, it looks so different from pitch level than it does when you're looking down on the match from that elevated angle. Some of, the kit to have that camera, I'm not sure if people have seen it shared through other umpires, but it's like I could describe it as looking like a bomb vest, that it is a vest that you put on with battery packs all over it. The camera itself gets really hot. It's not touching your skin, but if you touch it with your hand, it gets really, really hot. So while it gives that amazing angle, there are people that find all that extra equipment distracting from what they're trying to do out on the. Yeah,
I remember seeing it, and I remember that goal that Leo called the Aussie goal. Aussie against India, and it was just so perfect. You got to see what she saw in terms of that angle, and that it was not dangerous coming into the circle, and well taken. It was just beautiful. It was such a great example of it. But yeah, I think the body worn cameras are difficult because you guys are moving so much. And it doesn't, and that jostling action, until the technology gets to the point where they can really, really stabilize it. I think that, again, they have to be really picky about where they might use that kind of, those kind of cameras as well. But very cool. That was a great experiment.
Have a standard camera layout that they send to the broadcasters for venues these are the minimum cameras that you need to have. Any additional cameras, you can go above and beyond, but every single camera runs an extra cable, which costs extra money. So at the World Cup, the broadcaster was saying to move us from a van out in the compound next to the truck, to move us pitch side into a room, was going to cost them £30,000 in cabling for the duration of the World Cup. So when you're looking at a cost-benefit ratio for them, it's a lot quicker, it's a lot more safe in regards to the technology working and all those sorts of things, to just put us in a room next door.
Yeah, wow, £30,000. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Canadian dollars, by the way.
Yeah. A few Aussie dollars too.
Yeah, a few Aussie dollars. We're pretty close. We're pretty close to being on par. But there you go.
Yeah, so the problem at the moment that we're finding is the minimum layout that they have is 2 cameras that are the main broadcast on the halfway line, a camera on the 23 circle sort of height on the same sideline, and 2 behind the goals that are not manned.
Right.
So you've got nothing coming from the opposite side of the pitch to where the broadcast window is. So we lose a whole angle on that side of the play if the ball's on the wrong side of the body.
Of course. And if all the production equipment is on one side of the pitch, in order to conserve that cabling to run a camera from the other side, that's where the big expense must come in then, right? To have that over there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we need a cabling sponsor for the FH is what we need. Is really, we need a wine sponsor and a cabling sponsor.
I actually noticed in China for the first Pro League match this year, they had moved the broadcast to the opposite side of the pitch to what we're watching from today. So you could actually see the entire packed grandstand and the fans behind the play, rather than the locals playing tennis, which you see in this broadcast.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cute.
Quite nice.
They're all just
Yeah.
playing back there. But I mean, that makes it feel more normal. I don't think that's a problem. So Ryan Griffiths is just asking where we're at. We're just coming down to close to 11 minutes left in Q2. And we had that situation. Simon was just asking if the broadcaster muddled up whether there was a referral or not. And I believe he did. He didn't know what was happening. And again, that was a direction issue, right? Where they didn't know where to look, and then suddenly they put Maggie on the screen, and
yeah, the Chinese captain was just asking Emmy about a decision she'd made out on the edge of the sideline, and when the broadcaster saw the captain talking to Emmy, they assumed that had a referral had occurred, but at no point had China made a T or made any indication that they wanted to use their referral.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm just checking out where we are in the game and whether I have any notes, and I don't for a little while. You're welcome, Simon. Always happy to help. Bring on your questions, folks. It's there are things obviously that Aleisha and I have watched, but we're not necessarily noting as we're going through this broadcast, because we're talking about interesting stuff with broadcasting constraints and all that. I think you and Emmy did a really good job with allowing balls to be played skillfully up in the air. I think there's one in the third quarter, or maybe it's later. Oh, actually, it was earlier in this quarter in Emmy's end where it was a big save off Hogue, and it was traveling, but the Belgian attacker just very confidently put her stick up, snagged the ball down, and off she went. And it was a beautiful play on. And these are the things that that at your level you guys are able to manage. So it was really nice to see. I think the players could express their skill that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think the men are absolutely as good in the air as they are on the ground these days at this level. So the women are slowly catching up. And at a local level, I suppose it's something to consider, is the player's skill there to safely trap the ball. But definitely for us, if there's no evasive action, if there's no one disadvantage, play on, let's go. It's exciting hockey. It makes it interesting for the people watching. Yep.
Yep. And having the opportunity to try that skill in a game is a great way to develop it, right? If we don't allow players to try, then, how do you get good in those big pressure moments to be able to actually snag the ball out of the air? You still play a lot at a really high level, Aleisha. How do you find that your participation in your what is it, the Brisbane Blaze? Is that the right? Yeah. All right, I got it. In the hockey ones and stuff, and your involvement in your in such a top club team. How does that impact your umpiring, do you think?
Obviously with that, it meant that I couldn't umpire at our Hockey One competition because it's a franchise-based competition that if you're a member of a franchise or you're participating in a franchise, it's a conflict of interest to then also umpire. That runs, for us, our season finishes in the start of September, and the Hockey One League kicked off at the middle of September towards the end of November. We ended up having our final down in Melbourne. But so week to week, I umpire in the local Brisbane League, either usually before or after I play. So it's 2 games back to back, which makes good for your fitness, makes you work hard and things like that. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where we sit. It just meant, I didn't get to participate in our domestic national league as an umpire. I put on the other hat and was a player this year.
Yeah. Do you think that's a decision that you might take a different approach with in future years? Will it depend on what kind of tournaments that you have to prepare for and coming up and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I only had these matches in China left for the year, and I was pretty happy that what I had done through the year was going to prepare me for that. And then, so we've already had, I believe Hockey One's been cancelled this year due to our good old friend Corona. So next year it will depend a bit on what squad's available, and those sorts of things. Post the Olympics, are all our Aussie reps going to be back playing, or are they going to take some time off? For me personally, I probably don't want to umpire another competition after the Olympics, have something different as a player. And I think it keeps it fresh, that I'm looking at it from a different perspective. And I can appreciate the players' frustrations and difficulties and wants from their umpire when I'm also playing at that level as well.
Yeah, excellent. So Shelley asked whether you umpire mostly men's games, and that ties right into with Kirsty's question here about umpiring both men and women. And what do you see as the biggest difference in the way they play and how that changes how you umpire them?
Yeah, at a local level, I find the men's game is much quicker. I did the Belgium-New Zealand game earlier this year in the Pro League with the men, so that was an exciting challenge. And I found the biggest difference was that in the women's field, I'm quite tall. I can stand up nice and high in the circle, and I can see around the figures on the field. But when you're standing amongst men who are 10 to 15 centimetres taller than you and physically much wider than a female on the field, that was probably the biggest difficulty, was just finding the angle in the circle that worked to suit the play the best.
Yeah.
And probably even just letting them play even more than the women. At times, I think the women are much happier to get a free hit and establish their 5 metres and self-play on from there, whereas the men just want to keep going. If you don't blow the whistle, they're happy, and they, just want to get on with the game.
Absolutely. Simon's got another comment here that he really is enjoying your clear signals and how demonstrative you're being with all the players. Is that, I mean, I think this is your style. I see you, doing this in many games, so I don't think you're especially doing it for this group. But did you make a decision in your head that, for these teams, I'm going to be particularly strong with my arena umpiring?
I think that probably played a part, and especially with a massive, you can't see it in the broadcast, but the stand behind us was absolutely packed with teams and school kids, and trying to kind of buy their crowd by giving tickets out to people and really filling the stadium to make that atmosphere. And I think it's important at times to make sure that they understand what's happening as well. And it eliminates that language barrier that you potentially could face and have the difficulty with players who don't speak English as their first language.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, Derek has just come on. Derek, we are at 3:30 left in Q2 right now, so I hope that helps you get on board. And
so you can see there in that little snippet, you can see Emmy kind of yelling there. The screen slips to her because she had stopped the play, and that's that front door, back door that we're talking about. I was worrying about the ball position and the long corner setup, and she had actually noticed that 2 girls in the middle of her circle were shoving each other with their sticks up around their waists. So she was able to step in and say, hey, I can see that, because she was completely comfortable that I had control of the ball and the setup and the play on the other side of the field.
Yeah, and we're here at about 3 minutes left. And for some reason, the clock is still ticking, but it shouldn't be. But actually what's happening is that there is a video referral going on, that Belgium has requested it. And it took Emmy a few seconds to process that that's what Belgium was asking for. So the ball exited the circle and was, coming up towards your sideline. And then they had to go back to, she had to go back and get the question asked and figure it out. And it's really unfortunate, because I think... I'm watching Maggie doing this and trying to gesticulate to the directors. Now that you've explained what you guys were doing there, that really makes a lot of sense. So it's unfortunate, because once the directors get to the right segment of the play, it's very obvious what Belgium's asking for, which is the danger off the Chinese defender into the attacker's body, and it's a pretty clear decision. But at no point does the commentator seem to understand what's happening. So that doesn't help. It would be nice if the commentators were on board and could help you guys sell the decisions as well to the fans.
Yeah. Like I know at a big tournament, they've actually got people who sit in next to the commentary and the announcers who also have our comms, so they can hear our discussions and things like that. So that often assists with clarity around the decision. But in Pro League and the qualifiers, our commentators weren't on site, so they were watching through the broadcast and having to decipher what was going on by the camera angles that they were seeing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be a challenge. And I know with Pro League, especially in the 2020 season, that all the commentators, there was just a single one centrally located, not anywhere in the country where the match was happening, and so they must be absolutely beholden on what they're seeing on the screen in order to try to translate and explain what's happening. That's got to be hard. Yep. Simon is asking, do you think there's a possibility of having 2 women umpires on a men's game? International.
Oh, look, I'll never say no. I think having a more regularly mixed gender appointments to start with, because I know from that match that I had at the start of the year, there was definitely things that I was like, well, the next time I do this, if there's a next time, I'll absolutely change X, Y, Z. But, the first time that you do anything, you're always going to have moments where you're like, this is not the most effective way to be doing it. So, it wouldn't be anytime soon, I don't think, having some more practice, some more matches under the belt, and just some comfort around what we were doing. But I don't see why not. Like, if one can do it, why not two? The men at the start of the year, I don't think treated me any differently to the men who umpired them the day after, or Adam, who was on the pitch. Mm-hmm. I had the moments of frustrated outbursts. I also had the acceptance of my decision and my explanations and things like that. So I didn't feel that there was any difference between me or a man that was could have been doing that game.
Yeah, I actually, I just clipped that game maybe a week or maybe a week and a half ago, so it's very fresh in my mind. And I was almost going to push you into maybe us presenting that game, but I figured that there was just more drama involved in this one, because that one was a very lopsided. It wasn't a great hockey spectacle from a drama perspective, but I certainly did notice that one of the things that you did very well, even though maybe you felt like you were smaller and in comparison to the players and that sort of thing, the fact that you stayed so calm with your body language and your voice, it made it very difficult for them to yell back at you. If you don't give them the volume back that maybe they've snapped at you with, and you're just very calm, then all of a sudden it's like all the wind's been taken out of their sails, and they're like, oh, well, now I got nobody to fight with. So I thought you did a really good job of managing the tempers that way. And obviously Adam was a great support, and he was there, but he didn't have to step in and make the difference. You were just there and kept it going. But you could tell it was the first game though. It was the first one. And
well, I had my earpiece, the cord on my earpiece was dodgy. So for the first 2 quarters it clicked in and out, and for all of quarter 3 I actually had no audio coming through my earpiece. So we had for those that watched it, we had a moment where we blew time out. We actually came together, and that was because I couldn't hear Adam through the radio. So that added a whole extra challenge to what was going on. But I think dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-old boys on a daily basis at work definitely helps with the management of behaviour and people in that sort of instance. Managing disagreements between people for a daily job definitely helps when you've got a player that's not necessarily happy with what you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of teachers in umpiring, and I think you guys really bring your management skills of regular conflicts and dealing with people in authority and people who may not like that authority and all those kind of negotiations that happen. So it's a really nice skill set to bring to the game. Yeah. Not like lawyers like me who just want to argue everything and litigate the whole situation, but there you go. All right, so we have run through quarter 2. We are going to get set for quarter 3, and there are some excellent questions coming up here. So I hope everybody can get queued up on Q3 because I'm dying to get to these. 104.58. Yes, Zed, we do love the teachers. So 56.52 if you're dragging the little bar across. I'll give you a sec. Thank you, Jono. He's got the cue. And hopefully you guys are all getting set. I don't think there was an extra watering time, so.
No.
I've gotten really good at just going, 10 minutes, and just dragging, dropping. I'm ready. The skills you pick up. Okay, so if everybody is ready, I hope we're going to get started. Because again, we got a little bit of time, but things start heating up at about 8 minutes left in Q3. So everybody get ready because I'm going to start talking and we're going to show some clips there. And that's when we're going to dissect a few things. So if we're ready with Q3, we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and go. All right. Michael has a question. He loves how fast you are on the whistle throughout the whole match. And yeah, that's absolutely one of your strengths, Aleisha, is your whistle timing. I love it too. Is it something that you talk about with your colleague before the game?
Yeah, definitely in this game we felt that with the importance of what was on the line for the players to eliminate any sort of frustration or to lose the trust, our whistle timing had to be really important, and it allowed the players then just to get on with the game and not worry too much about being frustrated with, riding through 1 or 2 tackles and then losing the ball but having to bring it back 10 metres to a hit further behind. So it was definitely something we talked about, really helping the players get on with what they needed to do in the game with really nice timing in their whistles.
Yep. Absolutely agree. Ryan is asking, do you think that video referral should be introduced to national tournaments? Should or could?
Could. I think could. Yeah, could's a better statement. We're talking about the cost of running some cabling at the World Cup and they're not doing it at the World Cup. So yeah. I'm sure that if associations and national leagues had the funds available, it was something that we talked about for Hockey One. We had live broadcast on KO Sport and Fox Sport, which is the pay-to-view in Australia. Mm-hmm. So we sort of said, if we've got this capability and we're streaming it, why can't we be doing referrals as well? But further down the line, maybe with a little bit more funding, that's another body to sit on a camera, another body to rock and roll the replays. It's a delay in the broadcast, which lengthens the broadcast window, which makes the broadcast window more expensive. So if you're looking at it on that level, it's a whole lot more than just putting one person in as a video umpire.
Yeah, absolutely. They do have some video referral during NCAA games in the US. Maybe Maggie, has mentioned this to you, that's something that they try to do, but it is quite limited. They don't have lots of angles or anything like that. And even though there is a lot of money in the college game in the US, it's still quite primitive, and I think they struggle sometimes to really get to that accurate decision again, because you might have one angle that's good, but you need to see more of that in order to really make that truly correct decision. So it's a double-edged sword, and I think we've still got a long way to go at the international level to make sure it's as reliable and understood as we would like it to be.
Yeah, and as we just sort of said with the timing of a whistle, we want players to trust the process. Mm-hmm. So we want them to be able to make a referral and trust that what comes back is going to eliminate the major error if there was one, or allow the good decision to stand. And, I think when we first had video referrals, it could sometimes be like flipping a coin, and you send a video referral up and what comes down, you're just like, how on earth did that happen? And now I've lost my referral. So it's really important, I think, to build that trust with what we're doing and the processes there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And still on referrals, Martin is asking, what do you do if the player who asks for a referral doesn't speak English? Which you would have had here.
Yeah, so normally we only have one player approach us. So you might see at times if an umpire has got a crowd around them, they're sort of stepping back to make some space and they might be holding up a one by the letter of the law. If you crowd the umpire, the second, third, fourth player gets a green card. But the exception to that, and I had it happen earlier this year in New Zealand with Argentina, is that there's normally always at least one, if not more, players who do speak really good English, and they'll often come over as a translator. So I had the player in New Zealand who made the referral turn to her teammate, speak in Spanish, and her teammate then translated the question. Yep. The beauty of the new system, though, is that the question really doesn't matter. All they need to do is make a tee and walk away. So, yep. And most players can say foot, hand, stick, danger, and they will give you the signal to you that you would be giving to them, which gives us an idea, and then we look at everything anyway. So, they might ask for a foot and we give them something for danger. It doesn't really matter so much anymore.
Yeah. Just a couple hours ago, I was watching a China-Netherlands game from January, and Amber had... I think she probably spoke to 7 different Chinese players as they asked for a referral, and one turned to another, and they were making motions, and they were so polite about it. It was obviously nothing aggressive or swarming about it, and then eventually she went down the line to the next, and then she's like, "Oh, that's what you want, okay." Yeah. And then she, everybody had a giggle, and it was actually kind of a nice little moment of rapport that she was showing that she was willing to take that extra step in order to get a better idea of what she should be asking for. But like you said, not the crucial point anymore, which I think is a really big positive for video referrals on the international level.
Oh, definitely, because you might have a Chinese team speaking to an Argentinian umpire, speaking to a German video umpire, and you've got 3 different languages on the pitch. So what that player might have tried to translate into their second or third language through another person who's speaking multiple languages to a third person, if that's lost in translation, it was really unfair to those teams who weren't predominant primary English-speaking nations.
Yep, absolutely. Simon's got a good question. As an umpire who plays, which aspect of game management do you think other umpires need to improve? And which aspects of your management benefit from being a player? Now you get to rat on your colleagues. This is fun.
Wow. That's a good question.
Say nice things about Michelle.
Yeah. I, as a player, get really frustrated with the surprise decision when, you've kind of gotten away with a standard of play for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden they're pulling a green card and you're like, but, 2 minutes ago that was completely okay, and now you're sending someone off for that. Or the umpire who is completely shut down to any sort of explanation or is really unapproachable around that. So I think it's important to have the confidence as an umpire to back your decision to, if you're not guessing, you should be able to explain what's gone on for you to have that decision. And if a player approaches you and they're frustrated, often that explanation can alleviate that frustration. But when you, as an umpire, potentially block that player off and, obviously there's a line there of the way in which the player approaches you. I find that probably a bit frustrating as a player. And then as an umpire, I think my off-the-ball management has improved a little bit. So watching what players are doing away from play and being able to read what's coming through potentially allows that. So I can take my eyes away from the ball runner, knowing that the next 2 passes are going to go here and here, and sort of be moving my focus and my attention on to the next phase of play without necessarily having to eyeball the ball so closely.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Those are great points. I think as umpires who play, we all have our little bugbears, the things that really bother us. And it's probably because I play at an even lower level, like a very low level. I'm a terrible player, but my biggest frustration is just umpires that just don't actually know the rules. I have a lot of sympathy for what they try to do and that they want to get things right. But if they've walked on the pitch and they don't know a basic rule, that that really bothers me. But I still keep my mouth shut because I'm setting an example. All right. We've got an aerial coming up in about 10 seconds. And I think this was a good example where you might have thought that your whistle timing was a little late, but I can see what happened here, because as the ball is coming up, one player backed off, but then suddenly a Belgium teammate just sort of scooted around the side and had to infringe on that 5 meters. And I think you were thinking, oh, this is going to work out perfectly. Hey, what are you doing? And then you had to call it. And those are the ones that have to be really hard, because you're like, you must know the rule by now. You must understand this. And I wonder if there's anything that you do with that. Is there maybe verbalize?
All you can do is still blow the whistle and it's kind of apologise for being a little bit late. And it wasn't until you sort of put that description on in preparation for this that I was like, oh, actually, you know what? That's kind of accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty good at that. Okay, so you've just called a free hit against Guernier here, so we're going to pause it. It's just after about 6:55 or something like that. We're going to go back to it because it's a nice example of shielding, and it was for you a basic call, but it's a nice one to kind of go back and review for everybody else. So I'm going to flip over to the clip here, if I've done it right. So the attacker is dribbling down the left side and penetrating the circle, and in the moment, it's not really clear what happens, but when you isolate it down, and you would have had a great view of this from your positioning, she actually dropped the ball a little bit behind her, didn't she? Right as the tackler came in. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, it came as a bit of a breakaway, so I had to get on my bike and get it up the field pretty quickly, but I think that's the really crucial part of our positioning, is that we're able to get into a position early, because if I was trailing that or even square in line with that play, you potentially miss it behind the Chinese defender. But I think watching it was, as you said there, she drops the ball behind her hips and her right foot goes forward on a bit of an angle, which just creates that body obstruction from the defender. Yeah. And I think I tried to sell it. I think I ended up right in near the stroke point by the time I had signalled to the player, and just tried to make sure that my positioning was key, and selling that decision, because, if she rips that ball into the goal, you want to be able to make sure and say, you know what, no, I'm right on this, and I'm not happy with what happened. Absolutely. And like you said, you were getting on your bike, and by going straight at that penalty stroke mark, you actually cut down the distance that you had to run. And I think some umpires don't understand that that's a great way that you can make up a little bit of ground. If you've ended up being a little bit behind, you just take the most direct line to the goal. I'll just go right back to that beginning. So you're going straight, like you are in the middle of the goal almost at this point. And that is a great recovery mechanism, and you might not feel confident in being in that spot if you haven't tried this sort of thing, but it really is a safe spot to be, given where all the other players were and all that kind of thing. And you were able to make the spot on decisions. So yeah, definitely. And particularly in that moment, being a breakaway, I knew that Emmy was also on her bike up the sideline, but where that player was running, if she didn't obstruct the ball and there was some infringement by the Chinese defender and a breakaway and a one-on-one, that's when you're starting to go, well, maybe, we're looking at a stroke here as opposed to a corner. So by getting right in on the post there, it gives you that nice angle from the side of the circle that you're normally blinded. Yeah, absolutely. Derek just affirming, thank goodness. It's great to see that, these are the correct calls to make. And I hope this does give you guys confidence when you're at home and in your games that, these are the things that you want to look for. And it's not saying that, you're going to see exactly the same things, but what factors are going to go into your decision, watching for the ball getting dropped behind, looking for the foot coming across, those sort of things are going to have an impact. So we will get started again. Ian McCausland, good to see you. We are starting at 6:56, or 7 minutes if you want to round things up, in Q3. So I hope that helps you get caught up with us. And we're going to restart the game in 3, 2, 1, and off we go. Yeah, you can see that the attacker was outraged. So in an attacker's mind, they're never obstructing. She could have dropped the ball there and done a 360 and dumped it out to someone and moved on, but it was the fact that she then continued to move in the same line with the ball shielded from the body. I think the giveaway.
Yeah, the continuous movement. That, you know, because it's the momentary things, we allow that to go now, right? That's just part of the flow of the game, and because we know that doesn't create the significant disadvantage. It's when it's a continuous motion to move that across. Yeah. Our friend James has a question. How do you deal with co-umpiring with umpires who have your bugbears? Can you translate that? I have no idea what he's talking about. Who has my bugbears?
Maybe the points that I was saying as a player, I find frustrating.
Okay.
I think really open communication before we get on the field. Often I don't see the same frustrations from my colleagues umpiring as I do from when I'm a player. So, if you've got the benefit of having a radio on, you can talk to them and, that was a rough tackle, maybe allow a whistle on the next one to educate everyone what's going on the field. Or if a player's asking questions, you can always be in your colleague's ear and say, good foot there, good foot, let them know. And you can kind of coach them through a bit of those bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, I agree. And that ties right into the next question from Ryan. What tips do you have to effectively use radios? So you've covered a few things as you've talked about your communication with Emmy as you've gone, but maybe there's a couple other things you can add to that very wise list.
Decision first is a big one. When I first got on the radios and the ball's in my colleague's circle and I'd go foot, 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 and you're like, yeah, that's not helpful at all, because what team are you talking about? Which direction am I going? So often with our non-English speaking umpires in their first language, a lot of them will ask for you to first say their name, which cues them into the noise in their ear. So Emmy, PC, and Aussies and Kiwis, we always get told that we talk really fast on the radio and it's really difficult to understand. So having the calmness and the confidence to speak slowly, trust that the message will get there and it's understood, and kind of what I said earlier in that only really talking when it's necessary. While it's nice to have a conversation with your mate and have that banter going backwards and forwards, it also then, when you need to get an important message across, makes it a little bit more difficult to be interpreted quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I experienced, I was at the Junior World Cup in 2009, and I had a colleague who was not a native English speaker, and I realized after we had done 2 games together that we were specifically put together to work out our communication issues on the radios, that she would use what I guess is a verbal tick, which is very common, and they call it the Californian thing, where somebody says, yeah, no, or no, yeah. No, and saying the negative and the positive at the same, and it can mean like 40 different things. And I would ask a question of my colleague, did you see the penalty corner I saw? And she would say, yeah, no. And I'd be like, wait, what? Do I have to change it? And it's interesting how really tiny little slangs or figures of speech that we use at home, which are very well understood by our best friends and our families and all that sort of thing. You have to be really disciplined when you're talking to people of different cultures as well as languages and things like that, to make sure that you don't muddy that communication through.
Yeah, absolutely. And picking the moments as well. If you do want to talk about a rough tackle but the ball's still coming at your colleague at pace, potentially don't get on your ear then and talk about it, because they're still busy dealing with what's going on in front of them. So in a moment where the play sort of stops, the ball's out of play, the teams are fetching it, that's when you can have that longer discussion about the tempo of the game and what's happening, and things like that. So really pick those moments and then be very picky about your language as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Swampy's on the broadcast and he's saying things that I don't understand either. I don't know this Kiwi thing, hey, nig, and wignut. Maybe you can translate for me what he's talking about, but...
Yeah, no, I don't even know that one.
See, you just did it. You did the yeah, no thing right there.
Um,
But I know what you mean.
the Kiwis often laugh at us for doing it. Yeah, but at the end of the sentence for no good reason, just putting a but on the end of it. So, everyone's a little bit different. But I think that common language, and I made a comment a few episodes ago about the fact we have universal signals. We've also got universal language, 23, foot, danger, PC, long corner, free out. All of those terms for people who speak hockey mean the same thing, and means that when we're speaking to our colleagues, it's a really clear message to be giving.
Yeah.
Decision first is my big one.
Yeah. No,
Decision
that's
first,
really good.
and then when the teams are protesting or upset, then you can be giving your explanation for your colleague to give across the radio.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We've got we've got a few people that are affirming that this is a thing. This is a thing. Oh, Swampy's translating. Apparently Nig is Nigel Igo and Wingnet is Tomo.
There you go.
I don't know. Anyway, so we're coming up to a big play in Emmy's circle, and it's going to be in about 30 seconds as the ball goes in. And this one's really interesting because you and I kind of talked about it, a couple days ago for me now. And I had one view of it, and then when I clipped it today, I realized that I had a completely different view of what happened. So you and I are going to talk through it and just sort of go through how difficult that is, again, and how one view. So here comes the forward. She is driving down through the circle, and boom, we have a big collision. So if anybody wants to give a pause right here with 30 seconds left, I'm going to go back to the clip, and we're going to be able to take a closer look at that. Emmy from this situation gave a 23-meter restart. So I'm going to go to the clip, get to the right place.
Stick handling this time from Lee. It goes down.
So you and I both talked about how this looked like a bit of a long barrier situation where the player is going to ground. And as we're looking at the replay, and hopefully, Aleisha, you're able to see this pretty well as well, that there actually is a pretty good tackle laid in there, and the ball actually comes into the defender's body. So it's kind of back in, and the Chinese player in that context doesn't even have the ball at the point where she is making contact and going over. So how did you see it initially when it happened in the game?
I think initially I did it. It's two players that are on the ground. It looks dramatic because the Chinese girl windmills her stick over. And I was really surprised that they didn't hop up and make a tee and send it up to the video referral. And had I been the video umpire, I would have been sitting in the box going, don't send it up, don't send it up, don't send it up, because sometimes, you get those sorts of tackles and you've got the two angles that you've got going here in the replay that you've got to make a decision on. So it'll be interesting to throw that one out to the viewers to pop in whether they're happy with the long corner decision or the penalty corner decision quickly in the comments before I sort of say, as a video umpire or even on the field, this is what I'd decide. I think Emmy does a really good attempt to get herself at a nice angle to the play and her body nice and open. So she clearly sees what happens. The Chinese player doesn't seem too upset with what's gone on. But I think for me, I would nearly have said that this is still a penalty corner. The chasing defender has a little bit of a hand on the hip of the Chinese attacker. If you consider the time on the clock and the scoreline, what's the intent of the Belgian defender? And I think she still has a responsibility to make a tackle that is a safe tackle. Whether or not she takes the ball off the stick or not, what's her intention there? Is it that if the ball goes through, the player doesn't? She's standing on the edge of the circle / inside outside. So it's a really difficult one to definitively say 100% breakdown tackle. But I think if it had have popped up for me as a video umpire, I still would have said a penalty corner for a breakdown tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, I can completely see that, and but I think for me, after watching, I think if the ball had been further ahead of the defender, such that the long barrier that she was creating was trying to cut off space that the Chinese attacker was trying to move into, but because the ball actually comes back, she makes the tackle thoroughly into her body, and that really, for me, changed my opinion, and that tackle was made, maybe half a step earlier than I thought it was going to happen. And it's interesting that you say, looking at the time of the game, it's quarter 3, there's been no score, and with 30 seconds left in that quarter, that, you'd be looking at in one way, and I remember my own experiences that I had the tendency as an umpire to make big decisions incorrectly at those key moments by overreacting to things that I saw. So I really keep that in mind when I'm watching plays, to go, okay, it's still about, did this, that you still interpret the data that you see in front of you the same way, despite the fact that it's Q1 or it's Q4. But you're reading the intention in the context of the game, the scoreline, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like separating those two things out. So that's interesting.
I think the Belgian could have kept her feet. She didn't need to go to ground, and I feel that her lunging out in that manner was into the line of the Chinese runner. I think if the girl had hit her more square and the Belgian girl had have landed back on her butt or her back with her body weight going backwards, for sure that's an offence by the attacker. But with her body angle going that way in the direction of it, she's chosen to go to ground, and she's chosen to make herself big and long, and in the process she's grounded the attacking player.
That's a good point. Yeah, I like that. So it seems to be that it's fairly evenly divided. She was disposed.
And I often you hear players say, but I got the ball. And at the end of the day, that's not something that we consider in regards to the dangerousness of a tackle. You can get the ball, but if you ground a player and bust their ACL and break their leg in the process, you've done something wrong, and you need to be penalised accordingly.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And I guess just from that, it was more of a, what control did the Chinese attacker have of her body movement and the ball at the moment of the collision? And that's, it's a really fine line when you're describing that, to not go the wrong way. And I'm glad that you reined that back in, because I didn't want to give off that impression that it's like, if you get the ball, everything's fine. So. And
for sure, I think it's on the absolute border of the responsibility of the attacker or the responsibility of the defender. It's definitely not one of those clear-cut ones, but one of those ones that when you're in the VU, you're just sitting there going, please don't send that to me, because even in this discussion and in the discussion amongst umpiring groups, you can get 10 people say one thing and 10 people say another, and that's the grey area of our game.
Yeah. Okay. Just one question to sort of, to tie up that one. James is asking, does anything prior that happened or the temper of the game come into the decision that you make there? Would you do something differently if you felt that it was going to inflame things?
In that instance there, I don't think so. I think that tackle is enough of a borderline tackle that, I think Emmy does a really nice job of just having a really calm body language and signalling the long corner. She doesn't buy into the Chinese girl going to ground at all. And I think that's really important if you're not going to react to it. However, if in the first 10 seconds of a game that tackle occurs and it's a defender sliding and they're ankle tapping an attacker, it's irrelevant to what has or hasn't transpired. If it's a lot clearer, you're definitely going to penalise it. But yeah, that one's a really difficult one as to whether the attacker has charged through the defender or whether the defender has deliberately made herself big and long to block the entry into the circle.
Yeah. And I guess at the end of the day, when we have that, pretty even split, I think I probably showed the clip about 12 times, which is 11 more times than Emmy had to see it as she was umpiring. And her gut instinct and the way that she sold that decision was very composed. And we try to encourage players and coaches to understand that that's what we want to go with. Is that if that's where our gut has led us, then unless there's an overreaching error, there's something that we didn't see, then that's what we have review for. But it's not to second guess the gut judgment that we've imparted on a particular decision. So
yeah, and often we talk about acceptance on the field. So player acceptance and coach acceptance. And if you listen to the broadcast, you might hear, I think it's one "hey" from the coach, but none of the Chinese players on the field throw their hands up. None of them scream and shout. None of them make an attempt to make a video referral and get waved away by their teammates. So they obviously had full trust in what Emmy had decided as the decision, and whether that was the 50-50 in the right or the wrong direction, the players accepted what had occurred on the pitch, and I think that's a really important point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, everybody, I think we can run out the rest of this quarter. I'm not even going to count you down because we've only got 30 seconds left, and I don't think anything huge happens now. That was a big enough decision. I think we just end up getting the ball, trotting off into the corner, and there's the usual scintillating play that happens in the corner when they're getting rid of the time on the clock there. So we'll just count this down, and we'll queue up Q4 when everybody is ready. All right, there's my pause, and excellent, just checking out the rest of the comments, but we are going to queue up for 45:30 on the left-hand side or 1:16:21 on the cursor. I think people who have been tuning into all these episodes now, Aleisha, are like really good at their at their scrolling and their pulling. It is the weirdest thing though to do it this way, because I feel like there's just such a disconnect that I'm like, hey, magic people, are you looking at what we're looking at? So, but I gotta follow the rules. Rules are rules. All right, so hopefully everybody's got close to getting queued up and ready, because Q4 gets even more interesting. Well, at least in the last 10 minutes. The first 5 minutes of Q4 doesn't seem to happen much. So if everybody's ready, we are going to start in 3, 2, 1, and off we go. Yeah, that's right, Mark. That hand in the back. I don't think there really was much in that, in 26's hand on the back there. It didn't seem to change the balance of the attacker going through. It was just kind of one of those brushing contacts rather than a real shove. But again, if we had different angles, who knows what we would have seen. This is interesting, Simon. We always talk about how coaches seem to have the best view from far away, but I actually don't discard this, because sometimes when you're 50 meters away from something, you can see things crazily clearly that when you're too close, your narrow vision precludes you from noticing. So I don't necessarily think that people who are far away are getting it wrong. And I think it's important to be open to that. That feedback and that communication, because I've certainly had it where I'm watching games from far away and I'm going, oh, I just saw something.
Yeah, we at the World Cup, Carol Metchet was our video umpire coach, and she actually made little pictures of where our video referrals were in the circle and where we were positioned at the time of the video referral occurring. And it was quite interesting, the number of referrals that happened right underneath the nose of the umpire. So they were so close to it, and they were so zoned in it, and their vision was so focused that they've actually missed something in the bigger picture that someone who's 20 meters away saw very easily. So it's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. So Ryan was just asking why the coaches have radios, and it is not to listen in onto the umpires' communications. They are talking to their other coaches in the stadiums. And the technical team has, or the tournament director or the match director, depending if you're playing a one-off, they review the technology that the coaching staff are using, right, to make sure that they're above board. But usually they just start a phone call and let it run, right?
Yeah. Some of them it's as simple as that. They have a open phone call. You can see on my end of the circle when the camera pans far enough, a tower built up behind the goal, and the people in that tower are the video analysts of the teams. So they always sit on a baseline. So one of those guys will have a headset, and then usually there's a second or third coach up in the stands somewhere that's also listening in with their conversations. Yep. That's the reason why our video referral process is the way it is, that it needs to be an immediate signal. We had early on where coaches on the video tower were sending signals through the radios to the bench to yell out to say, no, refer, because they'd already watched a replay from where they were.
Right. Sneaky. I gotta say, I respect that kind of thing, though. I like it when coaches are pushing the envelope and they force us to be better and to get the rules better and to make us really think about what's really fair here. What do we need to actually make a rule about, or what can we just say that doesn't matter? Let's do whatever you want. No big deal.
Yeah, definitely. The big consideration there is that we're not giving an unfair advantage to the teams who have the financial ability to have more technology than others. So, you've got the Dutch who roll in and they've got, coach, and the Argentinians, they've got nearly as many coaching staff as they do players. And then you've got other countries who are traveling with the bare minimum and no reserves. So just making sure everything's fair and equal.
Yeah. Bharat is asking, why don't we have another umpire in a strategic position, for example, in the stands, to help the on-pitch umpires?
They're our video umpire. They're our eye in the sky.
Exactly.
No, I think the more opinions you add to a situation, the more variation you get. For example, the decision we've just had on Emmy's circle, we had 50-50 split. So between her and I, we had a 50-50 split, but it's very clear it was her end of the circle, right under her nose. So my opinion really doesn't matter. But if we add 3 and 4 and 5 different views on that and different opinions, then you're potentially going to have to stop the game and have a mini debate every time you've got a big decision like that. So it slows everything down.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, but I understand that this might be something that happens with the whole VAR thing with football in England, or I don't know. I've seen things on the Twitter about, big fights erupting, and there's like a million guys all watching screens, and they're all arguing about what they're going to tell the on-field referee. And we don't need that. We absolutely do not need that.
Yeah, even in American football, same thing. You can see the play stops and 6 people get together and have a 30-second discussion about what's going on and what they're going to keep and lose, and it slows the game down and stops the momentum of what's happening. Yeah.
Our mutual friend Duncan asking, who is the best you've worked with through your development and then now, and why, in your opinion?
Wow.
That's not a minefield. Don't worry, none of them are watching, except Frenchie.
I don't think I could honestly narrow it down to one person. Everyone approaches the game slightly differently and sees things slightly differently, and it's a matter of being able to wade through all the opinions that you get and take what you think is going to benefit you and forget the rest. And I can, there's definite elements of my umpiring that come from umpire managers that I have here locally in Brisbane, all the way through to the likes of Marilise and Minka, who are our Olympic UMs. So, I'm not going to say a name that is my absolute favourite, because I think you learn a little bit different from every single person that you work with.
Yeah, and it's super unfair because I've never been your UM, so I mean,
yeah. Like, it's even so far as to, if you've got a European for me as a Oceania umpire, the Europeans run the game a little bit differently, and the focuses are all a little bit differently, so they want you to umpire a little bit differently to, say, a who comes from Oceania, or a that comes from Pan Am, or someone who's coming from South Africa. So it's all a little bit different each time as well. But in regards to styles, I think that I learn best from UMs who let me go away and look at something and come to a decision, and then talk to me about how I went through that process, and whether that decision is the correct moment for the game. And I think letting your umpires find that path on their own, and not necessarily you just saying, no, this is wrong because of this, or this is right because of this, allows you to be able to do that during the match live. You can analyze that decision and decide, what changes I need to make on the fly.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's an approach that we're getting better and better at using as umpire managers. And some of us need to work on it, really, really hard. I can at times be a very prescriptive and I really need to work on, no, I'm going to ask more open-ended questions, and I'm going to more guide their own process and thinking. But like you, I think I appreciated all the umpire managers that I had, even the ones that maybe I didn't have great experiences with, but I learned something from all of them, and I learned something different. And the nicest thing about having international experience is that you have the opportunity to work with so many different people, and you get that richness of experience and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's really great. Duncan's absolutely right.
Yeah, good job.
So we're at 7 minutes left in Q4, and we still haven't had a score. Belgium's still up 2 goals in aggregate, and the commentator has no idea that you have stopped the match so that the Chinese goalkeeper can come out. It takes them like a full minute to figure it out. I knew it was going to happen. It's early, but a really great coaching strategy. It ends up paying big time dividends for them. So, but for any of you that... Go ahead, sorry.
They pull them off, and is it too early, is it too late? And chasing 2 goals, I think definitely not leaving it to the last 4 minutes. They've made it, and the play there that just builds across my circle, I was like,
yeah,
going to go into an open goal here. You've just pulled the goalie, but the Chinese defenders so calmly just run the ball out of the circle and are happy to get on with it.
Yeah. It's interesting. This is the one time in hockey where I hear coaches referencing ice hockey, because it's something that happens a lot in our sport, in Canada, where the coaches they know that they've statistically worked out what the best time is, and it's like 6 minutes left in the game apparently, which is way earlier than most coaches want to pull their goaltenders. So every time this happens early in a hockey match, usually the commentators will say something like, well, that's the ice hockey approach, where we know that if they pull them at a certain time. But yeah, it seems the earlier they do it, and if it's around that mark, it seems to give them the opportunity to build enough momentum and enough opportunities on attack that they can actually capitalize, which they end up doing soon. So in about 30 seconds, we are going to have another clip view where we're going to look at the first goal that China scores. Well, the reason why China scores their first goal. I umpired with Emmy in Antwerp in 2012 at an Olympic qualifier, and it was adorable. She was a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah, I first met her not long after I got my international badge in New Zealand, and we've done quite a few tournaments together since, Junior World Cup, and yeah, she's a really fun person to be around, and her English has gotten so good
Yeah.
Since I first met her, and I think she's really establishing herself as one of the senior umpires, particularly in Asia.
So we've just had the injection on the penalty corner, and the ball is going to sit or be resting on the goalkeeper's pads. And we're going to come back to this clip, but I'm going to let you just watch this sort of go through, because actually the video referral might take care of it for us as we look at it. But as I'm, describing what I remember seeing is that the ball is right on the goalkeeper's pads. And at first the Chinese attacker just sits. And then she does what we've seen field players do to each other, where they use the leverage of the object that they're pushing against, and she actually pulls the ball up over the goalkeeper's body. And then over top of her, it ends up going off the defender's leg for the penalty stroke. So what's the question that you're thinking about here if you were the video umpire looking at this, what are you analyzing and what are you looking for?
So the first thing you'd look at is to whether the goalie has deliberately shielded the ball. Mm-hmm. And I think the front on angle shows really good discipline by the goalie, where she goes to put her glove down on top of the ball, but then lifts it away and just sort of hovers her glove over the top. So that angle, it's not super smothered. From there, then you look to see what's the attacker doing with the ball. Are they pushing it at a flat angle directly into the legs of the goalkeeper? Are they attempting to drag the ball left? Are they attempting to drag it right, or pull the ball backwards? And in this instance here, Maggie determined that she, as you explained perfectly, used the leg guard to leverage the ball into the air and then plays the ball over the top of the goalie onto the defender, who then deliberately knocks the ball over the baseline. So there's a whole little series of things there. And the Belgian goalie did ask that she was pushing the ball straight into me as the video referral process.
Yeah. And I guess there's that tension there, because you don't want the goalkeeper to be in danger. Just because they have equipment on doesn't mean that you get to do whatever you want.
Yeah, correct.
Especially when they're down on the ground. So I think that, the way that I wrote up the clip and I was thinking about it was, is that dangerous for that goalkeeper in that moment? There was no swinging. I don't think there was a great deal of force being imparted. It wasn't like the attacker was pushing into the goalkeeper and pushing her backwards. Toke didn't move at all. And the ball just sort of traveled upwards. And obviously there was some resistance and counterforce, but nothing that you would consider dangerous. And you don't want to stop the attackers from doing something that's quite natural to do in their pursuit of scoring a goal, right? We still want them to try to score. So it's a really weird thing when the ball is there and then everybody's just standing there going, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So, I definitely could, I definitely can see why that, that decision held and that sort of thing. But a good referral.
I think at that point of the game, you're always going to use your referral there if you get a penalty stroke against you. That goal completely changed the tempo of the match immediately. Belgium all game had been slowing down free hits, had been taking their time, and immediately it was like panic stations of we've got to go, we've got to score. All of a sudden, with 3 minutes to go, there's a little bit more riding in this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of big opportunities coming up, and it's really nice to see a team that makes the maneuver of pulling the goalkeeper is able to actually generate some really solid attack and pressure and that sort of thing. James has the best questions, by the way. And I just missed the other goal, but it was a real stinker of a goal, unfortunately.
Yeah,
for Alex.
For two goals in quick succession. Belgium were 4 minutes from a plane ride to Tokyo, comfortably a plane ride to Tokyo, and that cross there, just Gagnes loses sight of her attacker and ends up mistrapping the ball back past the goalie, and the Belgians just were absolutely flawed, and I don't think they had a plan B, C, D, or E where they were all of a sudden 2-2 with 3 minutes to go, and of course trying to throw the goalkeeper back on at this point to shore up their defensive end of the field with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, absolutely, because now we're tied on aggregate, so...
Correct, yeah.
All the sheep farms are being played for now. So, we'll get back to James's question. Does the stick over an opponent's head restriction apply to a keeper? It seems like that could have come into play here.
Yeah, when you look at the replay closely, the attacker actually does hit the goalie in the head as she goes to play the ball over the top. I think in this instance, it's not dangerous. It's a small, slow sort of moving stick. If it was a high ball and they were swinging like a baseball bat and they've missed the ball, obviously, that's going to be a lot different of a decision to a small bump on the cage when at low velocity. So something to consider around, I think, speed, intent, situational, but not something that we can put a black and white yes or no answer on.
Yeah, and I think the other consideration is that the goalkeeper is down at that point. Their helmet is sort of waist height, so it's really difficult to say to a player that they can't maneuver as they naturally would in a way that wouldn't normally be dangerous to a player's head, just because the goalkeeper is down on the ground. If they had been lying flat on the ground and their helmet is down, can the attacker not be allowed to move their stick? We need to be very careful about head injuries, and it's a big priority in our game. But like you said, it was slow moving in that case, and I think it's something that you would expect to see. That's a natural way of playing that isn't out of character.
Yeah.
So I'm getting too close to about 1 minute left in the game, and it has just flown by. But what a game, in that it sort of just floated along for quite a while, and then as soon as China pulled their goalkeeper, that's when it all blew apart. Yeah. And like you were saying, it was the mental side of the game for both the teams. One side was really like, hey, we're going to do something here, and the other team not having the game plan to match that.
Yeah, and I think Emmy and I discussed at the quarter time breaks, the longer that the score stayed 0-0, the importance of us continuing to be calm, making good timing in the whistles. These last 3 minutes were so frantic, and Sarah sort of spoke about the duck on the water on Saturday in her episode, and absolutely this was a time where we did talk a little bit more on the radios. We had that discussion of let's stay calm, time the whistles, make sure the ball position's in the right spot, establish all of those expectations that we had built through the match, but not let the franticness of the players' desires interrupt the flow of us umpiring.
Yeah. So we have just wrapped up quarter 4, so we're going to pause here and we're going to let everybody queue up, because they try to I know that the match officials try to get everything going within 5 minutes of the end of the last quarter, but it doesn't always work out that way. Right, so we're either at 20-27 on the left-hand side, or as Jono has indicated, 141-25. So let everybody scroll up to that. And while we're waiting for everybody to get there, the one thing I want everybody to notice in this, because I harp on this a little bit, I don't like to get picky about little details that are technical, but you guys actually have an 8-second visual clock. Like, thank God. Because how many times have, I watched, and we've presented matches here on Umpire at Home, where we get to a crucial shootout, like say, Sarah's match, just the grand final, the Pro League, and there's no bloody 8-second clock anywhere that anybody can see, or that's available even to the video umpire. And that just blows me away. Like, that doesn't help you guys at all. So I'm really happy to see that they actually have that together.
Yeah, it's good in theory. We had a shootout earlier in the year, the same two teams, in fact, in their Pro League match, where they ran the wrong script in the programming on the clock, and it kept pausing at 0.7. So the first shootout came in, and I don't remember if it went out of play or if it went into the goal. But there was no hooter, and I remember looking at the clock and seeing 0.7 and was like, oh, that's unusual. Maybe they paused the clock after the ball went out of play or into the goal. And then the second shootout came, and the first one felt long, and the second one felt even longer. And she scored, and I remember when I turned to blow the goal, my eyes lingered. The scoreboard's in the exact same situation that it is here. My eyes lingered on the board, and it was paused again on 0.7. And I thought to myself, the likelihood of someone being able to pause to the 10th of a second so accurately 2 times in a row, there's something. And I walked up to the match manager, and I said, I'm not doing another shootout till you get someone on an air horn or a whistle, because something's not right here. And when I had that discussion, the Belgians then wanted to refer the previous shootout that had gone in. And it was a moment of saying, look, I'm sorry, we don't have the technology available. He can't see the clock. He can't hear a sound because there isn't one.
Yeah.
So both the first 2 shootouts went, when we went back and timed them, longer than our allocated time.
Oh, no. Yeah. And I mean, you watched the broadcast as well, but for those of the people watching at home that didn't, Sarah did mention that I think it was just the one shootout at the grand final that they weren't sure if it got completed in the 8 seconds. It seemed like it was too long, and she said that they went back and timed it, or she went back and timed it, and it was definitely over something like 10 seconds instead of 8, which is obviously a huge difference. But yeah, and the other thing that I like about this is I noticed that there is a score clock horn, and somebody else is also blowing a secondary horn, just in case that horn fails. So they've got the 2 stopgap measures, and I'm like, respect.
Yeah.
That's
not on the first one. I think as we watch it, you'll notice there's a delay, and I'm sort of up near the 23 because I had all these horrible memories of that match earlier in the year and understood completely that these shootouts decided an Olympic dream or crushed an Olympic dream. And I was very anxious that we were going to have the same issue. And I think on the first one, the hooter either goes or it's very quiet, or for whatever reason, I don't hear it. And then they also brought out the air horn and started
okay.
as well.
Good. All right. So I noticed it happened later. Okay, good. All right. So I think everybody should probably be queued up by now, and we will get started on the first shootout. And we'll go in 3, 2, 1. And Belgium is up first. I gotta say, the Chinese keeper had a hell of a shootout. She played really, really well. And I know that there's a lot of conversation about lack of execution, but you know what? Sometimes the keepers are just really on their game, and these two are 2 of the best, I think.
Yeah, the lack of execution comes from the time pressure that the goalies managed to put the striker under by delaying the taking of the shot as late as they can. You start to then get quite panicked as the player going in, because your perception of time occurs a lot quicker than potentially what's happening in real life.
Yeah, I think Rachel Lynch did an interview where she talked about that specifically, that's her goal, is just to delay things as long as possible. It's not about making a save, it's about delaying the attacker from doing what they want to do. So or maybe it was somebody else. I don't know.
She's pretty good on a shootout too, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So we've just had the first Chinese attempt that has gone for 1. I like the body language of the Chinese players, and I know we're not analyzing players here, but they looked positive. Even every time that they didn't score, they still looked like, it's okay, we're fine, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah.
Really surprising. They looked a lot more relaxed than the Belgians did. And so that's the second Belgian attempt that's just gone through. That's Pouveret that wasn't able to score on Lee. You haven't had any tough decisions to make so far, which is nice.
No, Craig Gribble gave us, from New Zealand, gave us some really good advice at the World Cup that you start the shootout and then you're essentially putting your whistle in your pocket and just let them play. Unless it's something that's super obvious or super deliberate. The last thing you want to do is pip your whistle and interrupt the play unnecessarily and potentially stop a goal from going, being allowed to be awarded because you've blown the whistle before it's made it to the net.
Right, because you do have the opportunity to go back, especially with the video review available. So,
yeah,
that is nice. For those of us who don't have video review, we might apply a little bit of a different criterion because we don't want to have don't want to try a play at advantage, for example.
Yeah.
When you only have 8 seconds to score. All right, Garnier stepping up. Another big save from Lee. So we're halfway through the third round now. I'm just looking at my notes ahead. I'll keep it to myself until we get to that point. But I do use all caps in here. So it's serious.
Yeah, when I looked at your notes, I had a little chuckle.
All right, so Chinese attacker is stepping up. And there it is, nicely done.
It's quite, I don't know if anyone's watched a shootout live at the international level, but it's a very long delay between every shootout because while we're watching these replays on the TV, the player is standing over the ball, the goalie's standing in the net. I'm standing there staring at the floor manager to wait for him to say, yep, you're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole time is always edged out, and it puts all that extra bit of pressure, I think, on the players in their minds of thinking about what they have to do at going ahead.
Another good stop from Lee. Do you feel like it might put a little more pressure on you as well, or do you feel like, you're just here at this moment and it's just
Yeah, I don't find shootouts too stressful at all. I think each shootout has the exact same importance on it, with the only 5 opportunities to score. The way we approach each shootout doesn't really change. Just what the players decide to do gets more exciting or more silly or more desperate.
Yeah. And here's the one where you actually had a decision to make. And we can pause it here. We can take another look at it. So this is the what I call the 4.2. So it's the 4th round, and the second player has come up for their attempt. So if you just get a little pause, I will go to the clip. Maybe if I hit the right buttons. No, that is the right button. And here's the right clip.
If she scores, China are there.
So as you're watching here, Aleisha, how did you describe it to me when we talked about it before?
Yeah, a bit of desperation, I think. The Chinese attacker here just backed straight into the goalie, and the goalie ends up on her butt for a reason, and that's because of the momentum that's collided with her from the Chinese attacker. And we often look at a hand on the attacker by the goalie and pushing the attacker, and we look really closely for that. And I think in this instance it was very clear that there was no force from the goalie's hand. In fact, it was the body and the hips of the Chinese defender just moving backwards further and further. And I think when you even zoom the replay in, she puts it on her own foot as well. So
yeah,
there was a few moments there where you could give the hit out to the goalie. And
there she is.
Yeah, the Belgian goalie, but when she hit the ground on her butt, I could see her look at me with her hand in the air and just sort of as getting ready to make a referral out. And yeah, it was an easy one to pick, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Nice to be able to do those for sure. Okay, everybody, so we're going to unpause. We're going to get going in 3, 2, 1. And we are on round 5. Whew, it's getting good. See, again, the Chinese players, they look relaxed. They're happy. They're smiling. Maybe they're smiling out of nervousness, but they look pretty good.
Yeah, I think they definitely came out with a different attitude to what they had the day before. The second match, they had a lot more confidence about what they were doing.
Yeah. What a take by Ballantyne, though. Jeez.
Yeah, 18 years old. The Olympic dreams of your country on your shoulders.
Yeah. I actually guested on several Pro League podcasts that run by a friend of mine, and she was definitely my pick for the player of the 2019 season for Pro League. I just thought she was just outstanding. And here's the last Chinese attempt. Oh! And the big save. Now, this is really important. And this is the part where I have the all caps in the thing. I say, commentator is an idiot. Because all of you at home know this. That when you've gone through the first round of 5, that we now go to sudden death or sudden victory shootouts, and the opposite team goes first. Then who went first in the regular round? And the players can go in whatever order from the 5 who took the shootout from the previous round. So this isn't a retake. The commentator is saying, oh, I guess it must be a retake for some strange reason. I don't know why. Because the same player...
I think he thought that was already the first of the sudden death shootouts. So yeah, he's clearly just miscounted.
Yeah.
But made me look like a bit of a fool in his broadcast.
Just tough. I know. But great score. At least you got that going. Yeah.
Completely different shootout to the one that she took 10 seconds earlier.
Right.
Which I baffled the defense, the goalie. There was no ball in it around. I had a quick glance at Emmy to make sure that she was happy that it wasn't backstick. Going through. If the goalie's right on top of it, she would have definitely referred it if there was any hope of a backstick. And then we come down to, each team wanted to go trying to fight their way into the Olympics.
And there was the one wide. So this is a question I'll ask you because I had a couple people around the time that this game was played actually DM me and ask me whether the stick, I'm just watching the coaches, they're so excited, whether Garnier's throwing her stick into the end advertising boards, if it would ever come across your mind to deal with that in any way, shape, or form. So what's your take on that? I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you.
Live on the field, I had turned to signal the 16, and it was in my peripheral vision that I saw and heard the stick bounce off the board. So I didn't actually see her immediately throwing it into the boards. But I turned around and got my best angry teacher face on and put my hands on my hips and really looked at her, but she never turned to acknowledge me. She just walked straight forward and put her head on the boards. You can see even in the broadcast there, it flicks momentarily to me talking to Tammy, and you can see my hand go like that. And that's, Tammy was our match manager, and I said, Tam, she's just hurled her hockey stick into the score, like into the boards behind the goal. And at that point, you can understand the emotion, but you still need to consider, I suppose, the danger and the intent of what they're doing. So post-match, a match manager, tournament director's decision for discipline. Me as an umpire, I'm not going to deal with that. But definitely something that was discussed, and there was a conversation with the player and the coaching staff of Belgium about, the appropriateness of what's going on. And even now watching this back, and I've watched this match 4 or 5 times, I still almost get goosebumps watching these scenes at the end of the match. You see the Chinese celebrating to the crowd, and in front of the Chinese there's white shirts on the pitch everywhere who are we're 3 minutes from an Olympic Games, and you know, just absolute despair in what's happened over the last 5 minutes for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a really good point about the emotion of the game, and that, you know, and like Tomo just added that, you know, you can leave those things for the wise, the sober second thought of the technical official, as it were, to deal with that, because it didn't affect the game. It didn't affect, you know, it didn't put anybody in danger. Luckily, it didn't put anybody in danger, you or any other player. So yeah, it's something that you can leave for your technical staff to deal with it in their, in their wisdom. So there you go.
Like, you know, in the middle of a match, if a player misses a shot on goal and that's their reaction, of course you're going to penalise that with a penalty, potentially a 10-minute yellow. It's a really unsafe thing to do in a circle full of players. But, you know, after a match is completed, a similar thing at the World Cup when the Australians beat the Argentinians. I'm not sure that it really made it to the broadcast, but Belensucci took her helmet off and drop kicked it in the middle of the circle, 20, 30 metres up in the air, and it ended up landing not too far away from where the Australians were celebrating and you know, jumping around in a circle. And again, that was something that our tournament director dealt with as a disciplinary thing, and a discussion with the manager of the team and the player involved.
Yeah, perfectly fair. Yeah. Good stuff.
You know, our emotions run high in the match as well, and I think sometimes, you know, us getting aggressive and angry towards someone in that moment isn't going to help anyone. So a calm tournament director dealing with it when the player is calm as well is definitely something that's needed there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's their job. That's why they get paid the big bucks. So just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
All right, friends at home, who has any more questions for Aleisha after that game? That was fantastic. I think we hit on some really good points, and your insight into what was going on in your head and how you and Emmy were working together was really, really great. And as James said, it was all about her and what had just happened, so totally understandable.
Yeah, she literally was standing on that scoreboard, the board where she walked over, she slumped down there, and she was there for a good 15 minutes. After the match, her you know, management couldn't move her, and if you've still got the broadcast running here, you know, you can still see the Belgian players all over the field in disbelief of what's occurred, and the Chinese were so excited in front of their home crowd to earn a ticket, and we were sitting in the box just waiting for match cards to get printed to sign. And it was a really weird moment. We all just sort of sat there and looked at each other, and we didn't really know how we felt. You know, it was exciting to be a part of, but to see such emotional highs and such emotional lows from two different groups of people, I still can't put a word on how we felt at the end of that match. Yeah,
I totally understand. I think that's one of the things that people, unless you've umpired matches with that kind of emotion, I think that's the hardest thing to deal with, actually, because I mean, all of us have come from, you know, we've all been players. A lot of us have been coaches. Some of us are still doing all those things at the same time that we're umpiring, and so we can really empathize. It's not like we're these cold-hearted, inhuman people who don't understand what's happening out there. And it's, when you're in the game, it's fine, but once the game's over, all of a sudden it's this flood of emotions that aren't yours, that you're processing now. And your involvement in that whole process. What does it mean, and how do you act, and what do you do, and you know, are you happy for the winning team? Are you sad for the losing team? It's both at the same time. How do you have those two emotions? It's really complicated, and I think those are the moments where you just you want to sign the match card, and then you just want to get away as soon as you can, so that you can just process your role as an official in the game. You know, with your team.
I think, you know, we see these players often enough through the year. I think in the last 2 years, I umpired this exact match in China earlier in the year. I had umpired Belgium and New Zealand earlier in the year. I had umpired China again later in the year. So I know the players in those teams, we've built some form of a relationship, and to see the highs and the lows of what was going on, it is very difficult to remain neutral in that moment. And thank God, looking back on the match, nothing we did impacted on that emotion. But, there's those matches where a decision has occurred that has impacted on that emotion. And that's also really difficult then to go away and deal with the team who's not happy with it, the fans that aren't happy with it, the social media outcome that comes with that. So, yeah, we were just happy that while there was a lot of emotion, we weren't responsible for a team feeling a particular way. It really just turned out how the players played the match.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Normal's just asking, how long after the game did you do a debrief? Did you do a debrief after this game? Is actually probably the better question.
Yeah, we had Sarah Garnett from New Zealand in country as our umpires manager, and her and Tammy actually had a 1 a.m. flight from Beijing, which was a 4-hour car ride from the pitch. Wow. So within probably 30 minutes of the match finishing, they were in a car going to the airport to fly home. So the debrief was at the pitch quite short. We spoke about it later on at dinner, but we've kind of at an international level anyway moved away from that style of you umpire, you sign the cards, you walk to a room and immediately debrief what happened in the 12th minute of the first quarter, and that missed foot in that circle, don't you remember that? And I think it kind of links back to what I was saying earlier, where we have started as a group being able to reflect on our umpiring as a team, discuss what we liked, what we didn't like, what happened, or how we could have avoided what we didn't like, or what we might do differently next time. And then we kind of take those opinions back to the umpire manager and say, this is what we picked out that was good. This is what we would like to have done differently. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have further opinions and comments? And more often than not, what we kind of discuss already as a group is what the umpire manager has picked out. Obviously, at a lower level, that's going to be a little bit more difficult of a process. But we definitely don't do it immediately after the match. Often with Pro League, you're moving immediately to be a video umpire or a reserve umpire on another match.
That's right.
There's no time to do it there and then, and then you're going to dinner, and often you're flying out at early hours the next morning. So sometimes it's not until a few days later that we have a video discussion or an email discussion or something about the match.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've noticed that there is a big shift with that, and the experience I had at the South American Games with Soledad, working with her as a UM, that was something that she taught me about, was how, okay, we're going to make it very clear for the umpires, and we're going to give them the option, but they all elected, let's do the debrief later when we're back at the hotel, and everybody's had a shower, and everybody's had a meal and a mate and all that kind of stuff, and we had a schedule set out of when we were going to talk to people, as long as it worked for them, and being able to, I think that helps the UMs as well, to be able to take a bit of a step back and look at the bigger picture. Okay, where do I want to guide the umpire, on this one? What am I hoping that they're going to pick out? Giving them a chance to process their emotions so that they can come with a more thorough self-analysis and a more accurate one, because as an umpire, I know I was extremely over-analytical, very and I'd pick out, details, and that was the most important thing that ever happened, and it wasn't. So being able to step back is good for everybody, I think. So and even emotionally look at an error in a, not so much as an attack on yourself, but a learning opportunity, and things like that. I definitely think having some time helps with that. I understand if you're umpire managing for us at a state level tournament, we don't have time in the day with matches going back to back to back to back to have that opportunity. But we still try and ask the umpires to at least give their perspective before we jump in too much and give our own. Absolutely. Michelle just chiming in here. It removes the removes the emotion of, geez, that was crap, or yep, felt good, but don't know why. So
Yeah. Or it didn't feel right, but I don't know why, which, you know, a lot of us are perfectionists and we like to do things correctly, and you don't like to make mistakes, and sometimes you walk off the game and nothing really happened, but you just have this feeling in your gut that something wasn't right. So yeah, definitely metabolizing all those emotions and stopping all of that definitely helps you be able to accept feedback more easily.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, are there any other questions from the folks at home? Who's still with us? Who's still there? There's a lot of people still on the broadcast. This is crazy. I can't believe anybody sticks around for 2 hours, but clearly it's the quality of the guests that we're having, which is really great. I think that does it all. Oh, looks like we've covered everything off, which is fantastic. Aleisha, amazing. Thank you so much for everything. And I think that people who are listening at home don't even understand how much I get out of these sessions with you guys. I learn so much, and it reinforces things, and even phrasing things in another way. And I mean, really, I think I only let people listen in just to make it more valid. But otherwise, I would just do this with you guys like every day of the week if I could.
Look, I think it's a great platform, particularly when we're locked down and we don't have our normal weekend hockey to keep us occupied. It would be, I assume that a lot of our viewers are umpires. It would be great if we got a few more players on the broadcast to potentially increase the understanding, but also for their perspective of what they're wanting out of their umpires as well. We had a Q&A or a bit of a video platform with a few umpires and Alice and Annan a few weeks ago, and just talked about, as a coach, what do you want in this situation, or what do you think your players want in this situation, and this is what we're thinking. So trying to marry up the two visions into one to make a nice game.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's something that I can move towards as I'm booking my guests into May, that maybe I'll see if I can find an international player who'd like to come on and help us break down a game from their perspective that they were playing in, and see, okay, what were the things that you didn't understand? How are you feeling in this moment? How did you view that decision? And how could we communicate this better and work with you better, and that sort of stuff? And I would absolutely love to have a coach in the same situation. So the last time that this happened, literally Tama was on the broadcast, and I was saying, boy, wouldn't it be nice to get one of you guys on? And Tama was like, sure, I'll do it. And that's what kicked all this off. So maybe just by me throwing this out to the universe, I'll have an international player who doesn't hate me, who will say, yep, I'm in, and I'll do this with you. So you never know. There's lots of interesting people who lurk on these things or see the replays later, and we will we'll see if anybody picks that up. But anyway, we're getting lots of kudos and thank yous and awesome feedback. So again, it's been a great experience, and maybe we can do this again in the next little while. We'll see. It's a big time investment for you, especially now that you're back at work. So I really do appreciate that you were able to take the time out of your day and do this with us. So yeah. Good stuff. I'm just going to put this one up on the broadcast so we can all have a giggle at this. How about a Canadian male player for the second Olympic qualifier against Ireland?
Yeah.
No, Jim. We cannot do that. Everybody knows that I do not want to talk about this game in public anymore. I did enough of that. All right.
Yeah, no deal, Junkles.
All right. Thank you again, and thank you to everybody at home for all your awesome questions and all that kind of thing. And remember, you can always follow up with more comments on the replay and DMs. You can find Aleisha on the socials when she's available, and you never know, she might have some time to be able to answer your questions directly if you have them. And it's been a great time. So thanks again, and have a good night, everybody.
Night, guys.
Bye.